Welcome to Hope at Night, featuring Mike Lowe, Dustin Young, Q&A with our live audience, and host Anil Kanda. Today's episode, Is There Hope After Trauma? And here's your host, Anil Kanda.
Have you ever been lost in the dark? I mean, really lost? No phone, no flashlight? I was hiking through the woods late one night when my flashlight actually died. The moon was blocked out by the trees. I couldn't even see my hand in front of my face. And to make it worse, mountain lions had been spotted just days before. Now, I obviously survived to tell the tale, but our guest tonight knows a thing or two about what it means to be afraid and how to find a way back. Our first guest is a survivalist, literally and spiritually. He was a contestant on season 2 of History Channel's Alone series. He has also served as an instructor in the Air Force, teaching cadets how to survive behind enemy lines. He is also the founder of Wilderness Way Adventures, but before all this, he was a boy learning how to survive an intense childhood. Please welcome to Hope at Night, Mike Lowe. Mike, thanks so much for being here.
Of course.
Now, I understand you are going to be teaching me a survival skill, but before we jump to that, I gotta ask, what was it like to be on the Alone series? Now, how long were you on this program? What season are we talking about here? Where was this? Tell us all.
Okay, here we go. So I chose 21 days for the Alone show. And when they called me and asked me to do it, they were looking for a very old guy. And at the time, I was only 55. So it's like, wait a minute, the word very should be out of that sentence. Anyway, so we were on Vancouver Island, and they dropped us off with 4 cameras and said, do your best, and we'll come and get you when you ask.
So, Mike, if I understand this right, the Alone series or the Alone show, it's a show on TV where they drop off contestants, they give them a few tools, and they've got to learn how to survive. And whoever survives the longest wins.
And the win is pretty big. It's $500,000.
Oh, that's incredible.
And so I know that none of us felt like we were genuinely competing against each other. And so we feel more like we were participants and not so much contestants. But in reality, it is a contestant thing. But it was hard to think of it that way because I love all these guys. I hope you all do really well, you know. But what the funny thing is when they called and said, hey, would you do this show with us when the History Channel called? And I says, well, okay, let me talk to my wife about it. So we watched season 1. And my wife says, all right, you could do this show if you want to, but you have to promise me 2 things. That you will not complain about the weather on camera, and you cannot come home because you miss me. And so we have no idea how they're gonna edit. So we're watching it along with the rest of the world, and it gets down to the point where I go home, and it's because I miss my wife. Baby, I told you I did not come home for that reason.
So Hollywood got you into big trouble, otherwise, what you're saying, right?
Yes.
So when you were out there in the woods, did you ever think to yourself, man, I got in way over my head on this one? Were you just like, you know what? If I needed to, I could probably make this.
So I've been teaching survival skills for 45 years. And so when I went out there, it was just another class. We have to set up the cameras ourselves. We're literally alone. There's not some film crew or a guy with a gun protecting us from the bears, the mountain lions, and the wolves. You know, that's all on God. And so being out there, having to do all that filming was busy stuff. And I was like, most of us hated the cameras. But me, I was teaching a class to all of you guys who watch this show around the world. You should hear what I sound like in Japan. when they redo the show, they put a Japanese voice on it, and I think they used a woman. I was like, come on. So anyhow, so I'm teaching.
Your voice got really high all of a sudden.
It did, and it's very sweet sounding.
So here you are, you're telling me that when the cameras were on you, you weren't just like, I'm irritated. You're like, I'm gonna live in the moment, and you started teaching people.
Yes.
Now, I remember actually watching the show, and I remember you were building all sorts of things out in the woods. I think you built a bench. You were bowling out in the woods.
Yes.
It seemed like you were in your element.
See, what happened is I prayed. And I said, God, please provide so that I can do more than just survive. So the 3 taskmasters out there are water, food, and firewood. And you're constantly getting those 3 things. But I was able to get everything I needed in just a couple hours in the morning. Every day, God put 2 fish in my gill net, which is like a tennis net out there that the fish get caught in, so they get caught on the gills. And I'd go out there. I was afraid of handling the fish and getting the smell of fish all over me, and the mountain lions and the wolves and the bears thinking I'm now food. So I was so concerned about it. I prayed, Lord, please help me with this. From that moment on, those 2 fish that would get caught in there every day, it would be at night, I'd go to get them in the morning, they were already gutted. What happened was there's these tiny little crabs that would crawl inside the fish, eat all the guts, and then leave the rest for me.
So it seems like God was taking care of a lot of your food prep.
He sure was. Man, it was just every little thing. It was so cool like that. And I'm constantly sharing this through the cameras, right? Because we're supposed to just share everything we're thinking, and share it from your heart. We want to know everything that's going on, and you just film everything.
Mike, out of all the things I would be thinking about, being on this island, the last thing I'd be thinking about is looking great on the camera.
Yes.
Make sure this looks good.
Yeah, but God would have provided for you just the same as He did for me.
Speaking of survival, we have here some tools. Mike, I want you to come around here, and I want you to teach me about survival. Teach me a survival skill. What is this, and what are we going to do?
All right, so you can't do it sitting down. So get up, get that chair out of the way. These chairs aren't out. This desk's not out there. All right, so one of the first things you have to do when you realize that your life depends on your ability to survive until you get rescued is connect with God in a way that you got the will to survive. And then build a fire. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. Just build a fire, and you better make sure you can do it right because you've already done something wrong, right? I'm out here, I have to survive. So now you want to do something right and something that's big and bold and bad, right? So now, fire.
Okay.
Now then, unfortunately, we didn't bring any matches or light or anything. All we had was our knife. Okay, I don't know how come we had this one, but here we are. We were just blessed that way. So now I'm going to carve up the materials in the forest, and I know which ones to use, and it takes more time than what we have right now. So I'm going to, as you can see, I've used this before. You make these little holes, and as I spin this stick inside there, and let that be down on the bottom over here. As I spin this stick inside there, I'm doing a very specific type of hand motion here. I'm using what's called the rocking hands or floating hands. And in a minute here, or a second I hope, we're gonna start getting some smoke out of that, buddy. And
there's some smoke.
See, look at that. And if I keep this up, then that dust is gonna collect in the notch.
And we'll burn down Hope Channel Studios.
All right, so now.
That's incredible.
All right, get your hands on there and let's see how it looks.
Okay.
This is what it looks like when you first do it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Why are my hands going closer to the fire or to the smoke?
But there's a technique that I haven't taught you yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is me just being mean. Now then, guess what?
Okay.
What you're doing right now, there will never be smoke.
But Mike, I'm doing exactly what you did.
Oh, you think, right? See, that's what a bad teacher does. He makes it look really easy. So we would get the ember. Okay. We're not going to get a flame. That dust that forms here is going to start glowing like the end of a cigarette. And then we have a little tinder bundle, some fibrous material that we collected. Then we're going to transfer that into there, fold it, blow it. It's going to burst into a flame. And then we take that flaming tinder and we put it under the kindling, build up our fire. So now we have a source of success, and we have a source of heat, a way to cook, a security system, hopefully to keep the critters away. And
it's comforting knowing there's a fire there.
And it's a good friend. Oh, some of my best friends are fires. So that's it, the hand drill.
Mike, if there ever is an apocalyptic disaster, I want you to be right next to me.
And that's one of the reasons why I want to know this stuff is because I want to be the useful guy. I want to be the guy that nobody knows who got the fire started, but they're thankful for the fire.
That's incredible. Mike, you're no stranger to survival, as we know. Could you tell us a little bit about your childhood, though?
Woo! All right, so my first stint at surviving, I was 5 years old.
5 years old?
Yes,
Okay.
in Southern California. And we were at the bus stop waiting to go to school. And if you remember, Southern California was a war zone, right? The races weren't getting along well. So going to school was not about learning. It was about knowing where I was going to run if 5 guys decided to beat me up. And so I was like, well, why go to school? How dumb is that? So we just ran off into the woods, up into the mountains above Lake Elsinore in Southern California. We survived for an entire day. We ran back home. Nobody knew we were gone.
Did you grow up like in a happy childhood? Were things great with your family? Could you tell us about that?
So Mom's going to watch this. So Mom and Dad were beatniks. So this is just before the hippies came out. And all they wanted to do was party and play and have fun. And they didn't expect kids to come along. So they were like, man, what's up with this? So Dad totally just like, not me. And he literally just ran away for 10 years. Never saw him for 10 years. By the time he came back, it was too late for him to be Dad.
Right.
So Mom tried to hang in there, and it was just too much. It was too much. We came out from outside playing. We were in the projects up in the Bay Area in California, and we didn't understand what we were seeing. But Mom wanted to take, the quick way out. And we were seeing that, and we're like, what's that? Police came, whisked her away, and the ambulance, and we literally just hid in that room for 3 weeks before anybody knew we were there. And at night, we would go out and sneak in the dumpsters to get food, and
So you and your siblings were living alone in this house. The parents, the dad was gone, and your mom had been in jail.
Yeah.
How many siblings are we talking about?
we were 4, 5, and 6, 3 boys. I was the middle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what eventually happened then after?
So the neighbor ratted us out. We were outside playing. The cops came up to us and says, "Where's your mom?" "Oh, just over there." "Now take me to her." So we went upstairs and went just at some random door. We knocked on it, and it was a black lady answered the door. And we're like, "Mom!" And she was like, "What you talking about, boy?" So we just, and we're like, "Okay, there is no mom. We have no idea what happened to her. No dad, but we're doing fine. Go on now." And they're like, "No." We went through the apartment, found my grandparents' phone number. They were down in Southern California, and said, "You got to take these boys." Like, no, we don't have to. They were just in their 40s. Like, I don't want to do kids again. And the cop, he says, "Listen, if you don't take these kids, we're going to put you in jail." So they just stuck us on a plane and flew us down there. And the grandparents didn't want us. And I can see why. I was an unruly child. I love to experiment with, you might imagine, fire.
This definitely is not your first time, right?
Yeah, so when the neighbor's house didn't survive that experiment, I was in some huge trouble. And so then another relative or two tried to take care of us, and we were just too much. My 2 brothers were fine. They were little angels, and I was just like, what can I do next, And I don't know what they say about the middle child, but that might be one of them. So anyhow, we finally were sent to Father Flanagan's Boys Town in Omaha, Nebraska. Okay. I can remember at 10 years old, we were 9, 10, 11, and I was sitting in the airplane, and I told my brother, I says, "Man, Nebraska's a long ways away." "What do you mean?" "Well, I thought it was a city in California." And it's like, "We've been up here forever. California's huge." She's like, "Dude, we're going to a whole nother state." I was like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." And so Boys Town, there was 999 boys on the sign out on the road.
So was this was like a Catholic boys' home? Is
Yes.
that what this says?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it was Father Flanagan's. He was a really cool guy. When I was there, they didn't like the savages, and I was one of the savages.
Yes.
I mean, there was a couple native boys in there, and a couple other boys, the Asians and the black, and they thought we were little savages because we weren't Catholic, or we weren't religious at all. I thought the whole story about God was a made-up thing, like Santa Claus. I had no idea that little baby Jesus was really the Son of God. That came later, and.
So how'd you get out of that, or did you just grow up there?
Yeah, I made it through age 15, and one day, there's things you do in your life that you wish you could redo.
Right.
And one of the beautiful things about going to heaven is God has promised to wipe out our memory of those things that plague us now. So I feel worse about what I did when I was 15 years old as I tell this story, one of those ladies, the little old ladies, the nuns, had a pointer stick. And they beat me from age 10 to 15 with that thing. And I don't know, just one day she was coming at me. I knew she wanted to beat me. And I just grabbed it out of her hand and I stood up and I shook it in her face. And I says, if you ever touch me again with this, you'll be very sorry. It's not exactly what I said. It was way worse what I said.
Right.
And then I ended up in Boys Town Court and they said, Mr. Lowe. I was like, who is that? Your behavior is inconsistent with Boys Town's aims and goals, and we're going to let you go. So where do you go when the orphanage kicks you out?
Yeah, it seems like at every place you're just being removed and being put somewhere else.
Yeah, just shuffled along there.
Right.
And I could owe it all to myself now. Back then I didn't realize it. I just, adults were just misfits that needed to go to a different planet and let the rest of us live happily, is how I felt. But when I was 15, Boys Town had contacted my aunt and uncle, who is my dad's sister.
Okay.
And they were little church school teachers in Colorado, had 2 kids my age, and they invited me to come and live with them. And it was a Seventh-day Adventist family. And I thought, man, I could do whatever I want here. Now I could run away, I could steal, I could cheat. But these guys loved me, and they thought I was special. And I was just like, what do you do with this? I mean, all my dreams about running off and just doing whatever I want to do, starting my own gang or whatever, it's just not going to happen. And I was like, this feels really good. I like this a lot. And it's because of this invisible friend, Jesus. I would go to church, and the people were nice to me. Adults were nice to me.
So you started experiencing a different kind of people maybe you had not previously met before, and it was changing you.
Oh,
but is this where you begin to have a love for, even greater love, I should say, for the outdoors?
So my uncle was totally into the wilderness stuff, and we would go on campouts, and he would show me how to do this and all the other stuff. And I was like, wow, one of these days, wouldn't it be awesome just to be able to live like this? And it wasn't until I joined the U.S. Air Force that I was able to do it, because I joined it in order to teach the pilots and aircrew members how to survive should they be shot down behind enemy lines. So not only how to survive, but not get caught doing it. And it was the most awesome job in the whole wide world until 8 years in, they wanted me to start supervising it. And they're saying, Sergeant Lowe, we would like for you to not do the job anymore and watch everybody else do it. That's what I heard. And I was like, well, that's a jacked up idea. And so I was like, boop, I'm out of here. And then I started Wilderness Way Adventures.
It's really incredible just the way this family that you were brought into, especially your uncle, channeled your energy into the right place. And sometimes we look at kids and we're like, that kid's out of control, he misbehaves, there's no hope for them, they're a hellion, not an angel. But oftentimes it's like, the energy just needs to be directed into the right place.
When I was in Boys Town, they experimented with LSD and Ritalin, and none of those worked for me, because what it did is it robbed me of my superpower. Because ADHD is not a disability, it's an ability. And you just have to know how to channel it.
So your whole life has been about survival. You survived your childhood. You begin to, learn survival skills. You were teaching, in the military, in the Air Force specifically. And now you are part of this Wilderness Way Adventures. You're teaching young people about the outdoors.
Yes.
There's something that we crave in regards to that.
You're right. Yeah, we have that primal need to be able to do without technology.
Right.
And that's what it was like on Alone. Being out there. I mean, there was the cameras, but I was literally having to survive off the land. But I had so much free time that I was creating all of these things. So I dearly love Barbara, and that's a genuine truth about one of the reasons why I went home. The main reason is because I wasn't gonna, sacrifice my health out there for a game show. And to be able to have that much free time without technology, it was almost like a monster, all that free time. It's like, imagine having having 6 hours of free time every day and then all night free time. What would you do with that? So I was crafting things. That's why you saw the bowling alley. I made a football game because we were out there during the beginning of the NFL, and I had the Stones and the Scallops were my team. And in my mind, the Stones was the Patriots because we were Tom Brady fans. And that's the day my wife and I met, was when Tom Brady won his first Super Bowl. So of course we became fans, and it worked out well for us.
Right.
And so, but when I played that game, I played it every day, and I created a way where I couldn't cheat. I had a dice, I had a flip coin and all that. The Stones never won a game.
You know, Mike, you're definitely not a boring person. I want you to know that. Not at all. So, you know,
My poor
the thing
wife.
about, Mike, I got to ask you, though, you know, your whole life has been about survival.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, what is the thing that just helps you not just survive, but thrive? What is the one thing that you wish other people would understand when it comes to life? Not just being outdoors, but wherever they're at emotionally, you know, in their circumstances, in their relationships. What's one thing you think, man, people need to know this?
When life started working well for me, instead of me just, you know, like just destroying life, it was when I learned the truth about why everything is the way it is. You know, if God is good, then why is there so much bad? You know, even bad started off in heaven, came down here, made that bad even more. It's like, what is going on? So when I was studying the Bible, I came across a concept, I guess, a way of looking at the world called the Great Controversy. There's a really good book by that title written about it. And it's like, so God allowed Satan, Lucifer, to become Satan, didn't destroy him, he brought him down to earth, then he created human beings on earth as if God was trying to say, we got this. So Adam and Eve made the wrong decision. It's affected all of us, but Jesus made it possible for us to make the right decision. And so now, understanding why things are the way they are and my role in it, and my role is to have a relationship with God in a way that demonstrates the way He intended life to be in Eden had we not fallen. And then how the life is going to be in the new earth when it's all comes about later on. So understanding the great controversy between good and evil enables me to know is to be chill, right? It's like you could be driving down the road. Have you ever noticed that when people get in the car, they change? As soon as they put their hands on that wheel, there's some kind of a poison in the wheel. And they change, and they become, they want to kill everybody in their way, right? And so you're driving along, and some guy whips out in front of you because, well, God forbid, you were doing the speed limit, right? And so, whoop, out in front of you, nearly causes a wreck. And so this thought comes to mind, right? You stupid idiot. Now then, that's a temptation, right? All temptations begin as an unholy thought and feeling. So boom, all of a sudden, here it is, you stupid idiot. I was like, no, that's not how I feel. I feel sorry for the guy, but I hope he makes it out of here okay. I hope he can find Jesus so he doesn't have to be like that. And so instead of me wanting to speed up and knock him off the road, I have love for him. And that's one of the main reasons why I love Jesus, is because he took all that hate and put love right there.
Everything I'm hearing from you is about, it just seems that you have this very hopeful outlook on life. How important is hope to survival?
Without hope, it would be rough, right? Yeah, the hope is that all this is going to come to an end, all the evil and the unhappiness, and that all the people who want to just live forever in a happy place are going to be collected together one day, and then it's going to be on this earth made new. There won't be any evidence of the death and decay and all that terrible stuff, and that all of us are going to have all this energy, that's an ability, and we're going to be able to go on all these amazing adventures with Jesus. And I got this idea that there's other planets out there that didn't fall, and they're all rooting for us, and we're going to go out there and visit them, and they're going to want to sit down and do an interview like this, and then it's going to be wonderful to tell this story over and over and over again for a eternity, which I can't even fathom how long that is. But I mean, and so I've told these stories a lot, you know, as a public speaker and as a teacher and stuff. And the cool thing about it is I know it's from God is because of this. I never, ever get tired of bragging up God. and my family and loved ones and stuff, because it feels like the first time every single time. That's a gift.
Right. Mike, I know we have much more to talk about, and I'm really excited to hear more. From the outdoors to inward battles, we can all face moments where we feel lost and desperate to be found. Mike has taught us that survival isn't just about making fire, it's about finding hope when life goes dark. Our next guest is a social work professor and has a survival story of her own. We'll find out more after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back to Hope at Night. Before the break, Mike Lowe showed us that even in the wilderness, with no comfort, no company, and no coffee, God still shows up. Now we shift from the forest out there to the storms in here. Our next guest trains EMS responders, educators, and churches on how to respond to trauma with compassion. But her deepest insights come from lived experience. She isn't just any social work professor, she's a warrior in the fight for healing. Please welcome to Hope at Night, Dr. Dustin Young. Dr. Young, can you tell us a little bit about what life was like for you growing up?
Life for me was an interesting arrival, actually. I was the surprise. My parents had met in a tiny Appalachian town in Tennessee and decided they were going to adopt a family of 4 kids. This is early 80s. Okay. And so that process was an adventure alone. And then they found out about two months or so into the finalized adoption, they were pregnant with me. So I was the gift on top, and they went from a family of 2 to a family of 7 in that span of time. And through that process, my siblings had varied exposure to trauma. Mm-hmm. And they ranged from 13 to 4 throughout that. And so they had witnessed, experienced, and navigated many things before they met my folks. And then growing up, we had many struggles. So my dad, lots of medical struggles. And my siblings also struggled with their mental health, with traumatic responses, and being in that array created an interesting childhood.
Dr. Young, I've got to ask you though, did your parents recognize some of these issues initially with your adopted brothers and sisters, or was it something that this happened over, a period of time that they started realizing there's some struggles here, there's some issues here?
It didn't take quick to notice or intuitive. My brothers were exposed for fetal alcohol, okay. Which meant that oftentimes their brains were hijacked in many ways, and they became very, very violent. And so immediately recognizing this, in the early 80s, mental health often was love them into healing. We know it's a little more complex than that. Love has to be there, and mental health is a real concern.
What were some of you shared a little bit, you were hinting at it. Are you able to share some of the challenges your family had?
My brothers would become very violent, destructive. They would hurt themselves.
And how old were they at that time?
They were 8 and 9 within this. Okay. There were also good times. One of the things that when we talk about tragedy and struggle and mental health, we tend to think only about that. Right. But it may be things of struggles with attaching. Who are these adults? What are they gonna do? Don't tell me what to do. Do you really have my best intent? But that process too of how do we build trust in those foster families, one especially, provided stability for 2 of my siblings that my other siblings didn't experience. And there's a different trajectory that they went.
Dr. Young, was there this kind of climax or rock bottom moment, put it this way, that when just things came to a head?
I wouldn't call it a rock bottom. I would call it more like, have you ever been in the surf and you get just tumbled by a wave and it just kind of keeps going? Because for our family, it seemed like it was one thing after the next, after the next, after the next. And it didn't seem to stop. There were different crises, different ways.
How did this impact you as a young person?
For me as a young person, so one, look at my job. I hang out with crisis responders, and one of the biggest draws and biggest areas of training has been suicide awareness, response, and postvention.
Why were you interested in suicide awareness?
So suicide became a real part of my life when I was about 9. My cousin died by suicide on Mother's Day. And then it really came in my life shortly after. My brother took me from school without permission. That's called kidnapping. And he was using that as an approach to scare my mother. And we came home a few days later. He brought me back a few hours later, but shortly after that event of taking me from school, my mother and I were driving up to the house, and we heard a gunshot. And so as a young child, I heard the shot. And then I found my brother, who had broken into our house and had waited for us to arrive. For me, though, I bolted out of that house because initially, a young kid, I was going to protect my mother. That's the mindset of a kid.
Right.
And ran out of the house. My poor mother had to catch me. And then she got me positioned where I would not see what was happening in the house. She is a nurse. My father is a paramedic and EMS professor now, hence the responder.
Right.
I was raised by him.
Yeah.
And she went and worked on him, and he survived that first attempt.
That's incredible.
Exactly. And he really can credit more to, I would dare say his guardian angel had probably very little hair left by the end of my brother's life because of the amount of times he was not fatally injured even.
So you said first attempt, so it sounds like there was a number of attempts for him to take his life.
Yes. He would go on to have many attempts and struggle quite a bit with being in and out of jail, struggling with who he was, what he was in this world by this world's standards.
Now you're just a kid growing up witnessing all of this. How did this impact and change you?
For a long time, it was the normal things you would say, oh yes, I'm having nightmares, I'm having the impacts of trauma, I'm exposed to it. But I thought, it didn't happen directly to me, I'm fine. I'm fine. Beware of that statement. Early 20s, I started training as a therapist, a clinical social worker, and learning what happens to being exposed to traumatic events. Not even it directly being you acting on those. It impacts so very much. And so for me, I began to heal, and my favorite term is not post-traumatic stress, it's post-traumatic growth.
I think it's really important to just point out what you just said there, by the way, which is that even though that you were not the one experiencing, the obviously the suicide attempts, you were still experiencing the suicide attempts it was impacting you, and because you were surrounded by it, you were witnessing it, you were involved in it, and that deeply impacted you. And you just said the word healing. What exactly helped you to heal?
One, in the moment and growing up, my parents didn't shy from therapy. And so I had parents who modeled what it is to seek out help and that it's not a shame-based thing. So the modeling was young, and then also moving into learning about what trauma does as a therapist from the mindset, me thinking, I'm gonna go be a helper for someone else. And then sitting in that classroom and going, that's me. Wait a second. And I believe that is where my growth really took off.
So as you're learning and you're being educated, you're able to identify some of these things. You're able to categorize it, and it was giving you a better sense of who you were and a better sense of the situation and of the family. You mentioned the term post-traumatic growth. What does that mean?
It means that all hope is not lost if we have been in a situation we've made poor decisions, risky decisions, we've been exposed to scary things, if we've been violated and we have experienced loss, grief. It means that really God can do anything with the messiest materials.
Right.
And for me, that's one of the most hope-laden, because as a crisis responder, I show up when people want to die or want to kill other people.
Mike, as I'm listening to Dr. Young, there's elements, obviously, I see you pondering and just like...
No, I'm just trying not to cry.
Right. Mike, Dr. Young talked about healing. What are some of the things that helped you to heal?
Love. Being loved by people that I liked and then learned to love. Yeah.
That's incredible. Love is definitely the most powerful force, right? But it's funny, we use the word force, but it's more than just a force. It's an element that brings us back into harmony, restores us.
Yeah.
You know, coming back to you, and what do you teach people in regards to suicidal desperation?
Oftentimes we'll talk about signs and symptoms. The other part is learning how to just make connections with people. As a therapist, I love therapy. I'm going to recommend it at times. But more people in this world heal without the help of a therapist. They do not heal without the help of community. Isolation is deadly. And so really we focus on how to build those connections, how to connect, whether it's in EMS, showing up on disaster scenes, or how do you deal with what you see?
How has your perspective of God changed through all this? I mean, here you were a child, you witnessed all of this, and then you begin to go through this time of healing, and now you're learning and being educated, you're giving these tools, and now you're teaching people about this. How has your perspective of God changed throughout this journey you've been on?
It has, if anything, God is so multifaceted. And I grow more and more appreciative. And where I initially thought, you don't get it, nobody died on your watch. And it was shortly after losing a client to death by suicide that I wrestled again. God and I are pretty transparent. And I just remember being drawn to the story of, excuse me, Judas, he walked close enough to have dust on him from my feet. I know what it is to lose people and to try everything you can try, and the grief is real. And so for me to see a God who, one, gets it, also shows it, because there are suicide interventions in the Bible. Paul and Silas did one with a jailer. They said, no, don't hurt yourself, as he was ready to kill himself, because we are all here. Again, community.
Right. I've got to ask, what would you say to the person who's watching this show that feels they're at that moment, they're on the edge, and they need some help? And maybe they don't have, as you described, the community, or maybe they feel like there's not a community. What would you say to that person?
I would say, one, don't act on feeling, because the world needs you. They need your story, they need your heart. In the moment, it also is just wait the next second, just wait the next 2 seconds, wait the next 5, wait the next hour, and when possible, reach out. It could be simply walking out your front door to get away from whatever method or whatever thing you are thinking of utilizing. And then when you're able to disclose. But feelings are really, really sketchy sometimes. They are not fact.
Right.
And when we're in a desperate state, our thinking gets really narrow. And we don't see that someone's asking us out to coffee, or somebody's asking us to go for a walk, or simply trying to check on us because we've silenced our phones. just wait.
That's excellent. Now, I've got to ask from a different angle here, which is this. What would you say to the family and friends, the community that is watching someone go through this? Maybe they're suicidal. They're wrestling with the trauma in their life. What would you say to them to help that person out? What should they do?
Try desperately. We like to judge as humans. We like to say, don't do this, bad, good, all these things. Find out how this became the solution to their story. And get help yourself. This is the part of caring for those who are hurting is a heavy load too. And we often think, well, but I'm helping. And it's not until we start to struggle ourselves, and the helper role is a much more powerful one, because I can help you with your problems, but don't make me face mine.
Right. Is there anything you would recommend for, some things to say to that person? You say you have a friend that is, like we just talked about, is talking about suicide, or maybe they feel suicidal. They're giving hints. Is there anything you would say you've got to remind them of this?
There's no magic words. What I do like to ask friends is, how did suicide become a solution to the pain you're in right now? Because what happens is when they begin to talk, the one doing the speaking does the learning. And that's where they can hear themselves sometimes talk out of it, because most people who are thinking of suicide are ambivalent. And that is a great place to be, actually. They want to live. They want to stop pain too. And so to sit with them, ask them direct questions, and even ask, hey, if it's at a point of concern, can we call someone together? Knowing crisis lines, knowing your local resources, you are likely going to connect. The other piece is that for those in faith positions, love hanging out with pastors and faith leaders, because it's more likely that someone's going to disclose to their faith leader than a therapist any day.
Right.
And so training people to have conversations, or training how to have interventions. You don't have to be a therapist, but you do need some training on interventions, but not simply to be with someone. Be safe. Can you remove some of those methods? Those are some quick things that any of us can do.
That's really fascinating. Just helping someone simply hear themselves talk and reason is of itself that something that would help that person recognize, wait a minute, maybe it's not as bad, or maybe the solution is here. That's phenomenal. I know we have much more to talk about. This is really fascinating. I appreciate talking to both of you. We're learning a lot here. Dustin's story reminds us that even when life breaks us, God still holds us, and He uses our pain to heal others. After the break, we'll go to our question and answer session, but before that, just a quick reminder to visit our website at hopetv.org/hopeatnight to sign up for our free study resources. While there, you can also view previous episodes and download this season's free gift. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Hope at Night. We've heard stories of survival, and now we want to widen that conversation. Who has the first question for us? Right over there.
Mike, I was wondering if when you are taking your students out to teach them wilderness survival skills, if you teach them spiritual survivor skills as well.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that is it's absolutely inherent, and one of the ways I do that when I'm doing public venues where you're not supposed to talk about God and Jesus is to say 80% of the people who realize that their life depends on their ability to survive until rescued resolve within 6 hours to give up and die. And that's been true for over 100 years. Of course, Western people. And so what we want to know is, what about that 20% that chose not to die? the vast majority of that group are Christians who have faith in Jesus, and the reason why they want to stay alive is to honor him.
That's incredible. That hope and that commitment to God, it just gives them a desire for life.
It does.
Fantastic. Any other questions? Right over there.
I am experiencing a mental health challenge in my family. And the question I keep asking is, how did we get here? Is that a legitimate question to ask?
I would say yes. I'm going to add something to your question, though. How did we get here? And what does healing look like moving forward? Sometimes we think if we just get the answer to the problem that happened, if we get, how do we do this? What is this magic answer? We get stuck in that happening in the wounds, and we don't look at what healing looks like. We actually stay stuck back here. And so adding that aspect of how did we get here so we don't repeat it? And what does the skill or the relationship look like to help us toward healing? Whatever healing looks like.
And what you're describing is not just analyzing the steps that got us to this place, but to say, what does healing, could you clarify what you mean a little bit? Like, what does healing look like? Are you talking about the path to healing, or are you talking about what it'll look like after they're healed? What do you mean by that?
I'm going to give you an annoying answer.
Please.
Yes. Both. Okay. Because what we do, just like your illustration of people who have hope that I'm going to live through this, they had to look past the current crisis and desperation to go, there's something over there. I can't see it totally. There's something. And so I have to, one, use skills in the moment. And sometimes that's learning new skills to get me to that. So yes.
Any other questions? Right over there.
Are there any Bible verses that help you throughout your challenges in life?
Well, for me, it's the origin of the name of my outdoor ministry, Wilderness Way Adventures. In Isaiah 43:19, it said, God promises, and all promises are prophecies, right? He promises that I will make a way for thee in the wilderness. And so when you believe that, it's kind of like when what the Bible describes believers as perfect like God is perfect, it's a promise. Okay, so you claim that promise so that is my marching orders. When I come to something that's a challenge, I know it's not too much, because in the Bible in Corinthians it also says that Jesus will not allow us to be tempted or tried above his ability to empower us to not only survive it, but to thrive through it. And if you can believe that, then what's going to stop you? I mean, there might be little obstacles and challenges along the way, but they're just stepping stones to get higher and higher to where you're going.
Not a survivalist, a thrivalist.
Yeah.
It's not a real word, but you get my point, right?
Yes.
I like that.
How about you, Dr. Young?
I have a couple. The easiest one, Jesus wept. He wept.
Yeah.
And that authenticity of he has been there. The other is though the mountains fall into the sea, my Lord will be there. That's my version. That reminder, the mountains can crumble, it can all go in. My God's still there.
Right.
Yes.
Any other questions? Right over there.
Is suicide punishable by God?
It's a deep question.
It's deep and it's real. And my flippant answer is, thankfully I'm not God and I don't have to make that call. The deeper thing, though, that I believe, and I've been in trenches where people have died by suicide. I've followed up with families. I have personally experienced it. One of my favorite authors illustrates through a story. And she says there was a guy in basically he'd been chained in the tombs. So he's in a graveyard and he is screaming at Jesus, get away, get away, get away. And she says, but God can hear his heart screaming, help me, help me. And so being very aware that one behavior, one choice in desperation, when our brain is not always on that, idea. I believe we serve a God who is just and who can hear at a level we will never understand of what our desires are. And that's where I've sat quite a bit, because what he does is he casts that desperation out into thousands of swine. Can you imagine those who are struggling and those swine couldn't handle it? Imagine those folks who are struggling with suicidal desperation on that level of thousands of swine can't even handle this. And they're doing it sometimes sitting right next to us. Mm-hmm. I believe that God will be fair, and he is near at every moment.
I love what you're honing in on, and that is this, that there's no one better than Jesus to handle that case.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If there's anyone who's, no one's better, no one's more compassionate than Jesus, and no one's more understanding, and we can rest with that.
Yeah.
I would imagine it also has something to do with the motive why you took your life. I think that would weigh heavily in the decisions that Jesus would make. Mm-hmm. And he knows those. We don't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Even the person doing it might not know.
Right. And that's what you honed in on right there, which is there's a heart language God hears that we don't hear.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other questions? Right over there.
Doctor, we experienced the death by suicide of my son's best friend when he was 17. How do you deal with the guilt that remains? What should we have done? What could we have done? How do you deal with that?
1, forgive yourself. Recognize that, again, you're not God. And even God does this thing. He fights for free choice and still can recoup it. The other is get connected. There is a group in Michigan, absolutely love them. Every year there is a conference. And folks with lived experience, these are folks who have attempted suicide, there is a track for them. And they have groups for folks who have lost. They have groups. And so that you can be with people who have been there too. The other side is that we can't be all places at all times. Even as a crisis responder, I can only assess in the moment, because our moods and our emotions and our desperation and our choices, sometimes the moment we start that action, we cannot recoup it. I go back to the question of, what does this mean for her? And we have a God who's with you every step. And so leaning into that as well, what you're doing right now too, talk about it, ask the hard questions, listen to stories, and advocate that we keep doing that. And I am so desperately sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
You know, Dr. Young, there's a level, it's, and not just suicide, but when someone does die or pass away, we sometimes in retrospect think, what could I've done? What should I've done more of? And there's this element of regret, of just those experiences. But I think what you're honing in on is you can't change the past, but you do have a future that can help and save and bless and help and support those who are still alive.
Yes.
Right?
It is that piece of that future. I know people will come for me on my theology here. I desperately hope in some way Judas is in heaven. And I hope he shows up and goes, what? Because Judas and Peter did the same act. One was able to hold on here. But I do hope there is a surprise in heaven awaiting.
Heaven will definitely be full of surprises, right?
Yeah.
We got time for one last question. Right over there.
Mike, what's a survival skill or hack that would benefit most people to know?
Know how to do a hand drill, like we were showing at the beginning. If you can get to the place in your life where you can like rub two sticks together and get a fire started, with that comes a train of everything else, because your mind will be in that set. You know, it's like, I need to do this, I need to do that now. And so you're always in a readiness mode. While I was on the Alone show, I got tired of having to refold my jacket as my pillow, because I exercise when I sleep, like most of you. And so I prayed, God, I would love a pillow. And so one day when I was out beachcombing, I found a pillow that had floated in from Fukushima, because it was right after that when we were filming.
Did it have radiation on it?
And that's how I found it.
Okay.
No. And so that to me was the coolest thing, and I cried like a baby because the God of the universe, who's got a million things, a trillion things that he's dealing with, and yet he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make sure that pillow ends up where Mike is.
That's beautiful.
One day.
Right.
This is the kind of God that we're gonna spend eternity with.
Right.
I see that as an asset.
Right. Prayer is so important. You just talking to God, and Dr. Young, you talked about just this openness, you know, to have with God. This has been an exciting discussion. Thank you. Trauma tries to steal our story, but God writes a better ending. Survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about learning to live again. And that kind of healing happens best in community and through Christ. In Psalm 34, verse 18, it says, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." If that's you tonight, you're not alone. God sees you, God holds you, and God can bring beauty from what's broken. With Him, there is always hope at night.